So, what you been doing, Eric?
I just got back from New York, and I went there for work. And I go to New York for work a lot. Got really comfortable on the Amtrak. And a lot of times when I'm there in the city by myself, I try to take in a show because something to do.
Why wouldn't you?
In New York by yourself, once the lights go down, it's not a social thing. So I see a lot of Broadway shows. There is a show on Broadway now called Summer, the Donna Summer musical.
Okay. You know, I love her music.
Uh-huh.
Please tell me it was a good show.
It was a pretty good show. I really enjoyed it.
What was it? Was it a plot? What?
It was her life. So they tell the story of her life through now 3 performers play Donna Summer. When she was young, she describes herself as an ugly duckling. And so the youngest Donna is called Duckling Donna, and she sometimes subs in as Donna's daughter later in the story. The middle Donna was probably in her early 20s, and they call her Disco Donna. And she's the one who sings Love to Love You Baby and becomes a big star and becomes the queen of disco. And then Donna in her later years is called Diva Donna. And so these 3 women play Donna Summer, and they each share the stage, and it kind of goes back and forth. The plot is not really all that linear, but it just tells the story of Donna Summer's life. Can they sing? They can all say, oh my God, can they sing? And they sound just like her. And you hear every Donna Summer hit you want to hear when you walk in there. They sing them all.
I want to go so badly right now.
And I thought they skipped Hot Stuff. I was really looking forward to Hot Stuff, and they skipped it. And I was like, oh, I guess we're not going to hear that. Turns out it's the penultimate number that's meant to kind of bring the house down. Disco Donna sings that one. And then just to end out the show, and just as they're saying goodbye, Diva Donna comes out and starts singing Last Dance.
You have to.
And by the time the disco part, because it starts off slow and it kicks in, all 3 of the Donnas are out in front singing Last Dance. And the audience is on its feet. Literally, everyone was standing up halfway through that song. They had a standing ovation built in. We just didn't sit down. It was so much fun. It's not deathless art. It's the Donna Summer story with all of her music, but really fun. Go see it. Yeah, go see it.
Attention, attention. Pop surgeons Eric and Stacey, please report to operating room 1. Pop surgeons Eric and Stacey, please report to operating room 1. Surgery is about to begin.
Welcome to Popperation. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
And today we're talking about Madonna.
MDNA, baby.
Yeah.
Hashtag MDNA.
Every time I hear Madonna's name, I think about Robin Williams doing his interpretive dance in The Birdcage. And that part where he goes, Madonna. Anyway.
And Fosse.
Fosse. Michael Kidd. Yeah.
Clearly we've seen that movie.
A few times. So I'm just going to come out of the closet, as it were,
what?
right away.
Shut up.
And say, I'm a huge fan of Madonna. I like her a lot.
I am a very big fan, and here's what I want to say, is it scares me when you ask kids today if there's a song of hers that comes on, and you're like, do you know who this is? They're like, I feel like I should, but I don't. That, to me, is just as horrific as if a Prince song comes on and they can't say that that's Prince.
Yeah,
or Elvis.
There are new songs of hers that we don't necessarily listen to all the time, but they'll go, oh yeah, that's Madonna. If there's a song off of Rebel Heart or something, that might not be something that's crossed our path because we're Gen Xers.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the new stuff.
Yeah.
And by new, I mean the last 15 years.
But kids do. And so sometimes you'll say, True Blue will be on, and you'll be like, do you know who this is? And they're like, isn't that from the 50s? And it sounds like it's from the 50s because she did that on purpose.
Correct.
And I'll say, that's Madonna. And they're like, that is not Madonna. Because Madonna is like this total, electro DJ dance thing. And it's like, no, Madonna's had a career that spans over 30 years.
Well, she's one of those, as I said, I mentioned Elvis, I mentioned Prince. Madonna, she's an icon.
Yeah.
And again, it's people with one name, and you know who it is, Cher, whatever. But she is an icon.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to just the history, certainly the history of music and pop culture, that you know who she is, or, you know, it's the same as, I think, even if you're not a big fan of Elvis, you need to know his stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a big fan of Prince, you know, you just need to know their stuff.
And she's one of those artists that changed the culture. Like, changed American and probably global.
But I think your big icons do.
Culture,
If you look at anybody out there, that's what they did. That's part of what makes them an icon, is that they changed whatever the heck it was they were doing.
And so just last night, in preparation for this show, I decided to rewatch Truth or Dare. I couldn't rewatch her entire filmography. I couldn't listen to every Madonna song ever made. But I thought, what can I do the night before that'll really kind of get me ready to talk about Madonna? So I watched Truth or Dare. And there's this one scene where she's talking to her backup singers. And she says, look, I know I'm not the world's greatest singer. I know I'm not the world's greatest dancer. But what I'm interested in is changing the conversation. I want to be provocative. I want to be political. I want to push people's buttons, I think is the phrase that she used. And she did. I mean, in her career, she has pushed a lot of buttons, and yet, you and I were talking about this earlier, you look at Truth or Dare in 2018, it seems pretty tame.
Oh, it's nothing. It is laughable that there was a controversy, but it was huge. But absolutely, if you look back, her first at least 4 or 5 albums, not songs, albums, she caused a controversy.
Absolutely.
She had somebody protesting in the streets, you cannot play this filth.
Yeah.
I mean, or you cannot, to MTV, you cannot show this filth. There was a controversy on every single damn album.
Yep.
And I think, which goes to my big opinion of her, I think she's one of the most amazing businesswomen ever.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think it was by accident, because I think she's too damn smart. I think it was all on purpose. And again, I do think she had causes. I do think she believed then and still believes in some really strong ideas and ideals. And yes, she wanted to put it out there. But I also think first and foremost, she wanted to be an entertainer. And she, maybe not the best dancer, maybe not the best singer, whatever. She was a damn good entertainer.
But she knew that she'd get some publicity out of it. But I think she also knew that there was an audience out there that wasn't quite so prudish, that was ready for what she was saying. But even for them, it was stretching them a little bit beyond their comfort zone.
Well, it was Canada.
Well, but, you know, in America, too, you know, all of these things where people were shocked and delighted. There were some people that were shocked and appalled. And then there were other people like me who were shocked and delighted by what she was doing. And it did kind of, I mean, it wasn't just Madonna. She started this thing.
Well, it was.
But she was part of this thing in the 80s where, you know, Annie Lennox had this, like, short cropped.
Well, you had Annie
cut.
Lennox and Boy George were doing that androgyny thing.
Yeah.
That was huge. Remember that controversy about, I don't know whether it's a girl or a boy. I don't know what to do. You had a lot of people who were very scared about that.
And Prince and Madonna were like, you know, the man and the woman who were kind of, you know, pushing this thing about sexuality is a core part of a human's person,
now, unfortunately,
and we're going to talk about it.
they were both kind of misogynistic sexuality. I mean, it was still kind of that going on. I just want to throw that out. It was the 80s.
Sure.
But no, I do think you're exactly right. I think that there was this movement going on of pushing these boundaries and saying, we don't have to be what you think we have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not going to be ashamed.
And we're not, and we're going to be in your face about it. And now that we have MTV, which was new. Yeah. MTV was new. And that was another thing, was experimenting and seeing, A, what you could get away with, but B, what you could do artistically with a video to your music that you'd already put a lot of time in creating.
Yeah. So you look at the lyrics of Like a Prayer, there is nothing weird or offensive about that whatsoever. You tie it with this
Black Jesus.
Yes, a statue of Black Jesus that comes to life, and you
kiss and make out with,
and on an altar, while there are burning crucifixes in the background.
Correct, and you're wearing a slip.
Yeah, I mean, all of those things together. Ooh, all of a sudden we're kind of controversial, and we lose our contract with Pepsi. So, that's kind of what
they were too busy burning Michael Jackson's hair off.
Well, that's true. So Madonna is the wealthiest woman in show business.
Is she really?
She has more money than any other woman in show business. Now, I don't think that includes Oprah? Like a J.K. Rowling.
What about Oprah?
I don't think Oprah is, because Oprah doesn't, sing, dance. I mean, she acts.
Show business, though, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
She had a talk show.
Hey, listen.
That's interesting.
Okay, so Wikipedia tells me that Madonna is the wealthiest woman in show business. Okay, then I'm sure
it's true. Okay, I'm winking. I don't know if anybody's understanding.
Yeah, we caught that. Madonna is the Guinness World Record holder for the best-selling female artist of all time. She is the 4th best-selling artist of all time, behind Elvis, the Beatles, and Michael Jackson.
That makes sense. I get that.
She is the highest-grossing solo touring artist ever.
Damn.
Ever. Like, man,
is that because
woman,
her tickets are
anything.
so high?
That, and also because she just did all these shows. I mean,
she did tour forever. Is she still touring?
Probably.
She fell a couple of years ago and maybe broke a hip or something.
Her last major tour was in 2016.
Yeah,
that was only a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You know, who knows if she's going to go on a tour again. She'll certainly play some club dates. And if you play a club date, that counts as your,
That's
so in terms of lifelong career, how many tickets has she sold and how much money has she made doing these shows? Highest grossing solo touring artist ever. She is a musician. She is a songwriter. That's something that I think a lot of times we miss about her. She wrote most of her own hit songs.
Yes, she did.
Usually in collaboration with one other person.
But that's also where the money is, just an FYI.
Yeah.
You write your song, so you get royalties no matter who the hell sings it, which is why Dolly Parton was thrilled at Whitney Houston saying, I will always love you. But I think, yes, she wrote most of her songs. And again, and I'm not saying that there wasn't an inspiration artistically there or whatever, but I do think that was part of her plan. Was she wrote songs that were, what's the word I want?
Provocative?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean...
On purpose, though.
Yeah. So, again, you look at the lyrics to Like a Virgin. There's really nothing. I mean, basically,
but
you're saying...
Virgin. The word... That's
So here's where I'm going. You write a song like a virgin... Basically, you're saying, gosh, when you touch me, I feel like I've never been touched before. Okay, fine. But when you say like a virgin, basically what you're saying is, honey, I am not a virgin.
Correct.
And by putting it out there, again, in the early 80s, like that, what? Scandal.
Well, here's the thing. So it wasn't just that it was the idea of someone who might not be a virgin. It was going down to just the basic idea that someone used the word virgin.
Yes.
You didn't say that word.
Yeah.
Because that put things in people's minds.
Yeah.
And then not only does she do that in the video, and again, this is where, so maybe she has lyrics that aren't provocative, but she would put a video that would then bring the provocation, if you will.
And the album cover, she's in basically what looks like a wedding dress with a belt buckle that says boy toy.
I remember when everybody was, do you remember when everybody was wearing that? When everybody dressed like Madonna?
The Madonna wannabe craze, yeah. And then the other thing I want to say is, what's her name?
Madonna?
The word virgin, tied with Madonna. The whole Catholic thing comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
She was born Madonna, though.
True, but but the word Madonna, right next to like a virgin, right next to a picture of somebody in a wedding dress wearing a belt buckle that says boy toy, that was a whole, Catholic heads exploded. I was raised Catholic, so my Catholic household was actually not really thrilled that I bought that album and brought it home.
But Catholic households, a lot of her albums did that.
Yes.
And one reason is that she was raised Catholic. I think she still considered herself Catholic at the time that she was making all of this stuff.
I don't know about that.
Anyway, but also in the Like a Virgin video, she's like in this white negligee, the belt, boy toy is there, but she's writhing all over a boat. It's like...
It's Venice, isn't it?
Something, yes.
And some dude wearing a mask that's the lion.
Oh, it was also
in a tuxedo,
strange.
And it's just,
But it was very, very sexual.
Yeah.
And the word virgin was used.
Yep.
And it was crazy.
As a musician, so we're going to start talking about her music career. 13 studio albums. 13 of them. Madonna, the self-titled album, Like a Virgin, True Blue, Like a Prayer, Erotica, Bedtime Stories, Ray of Light, Music, American Life, Confessions on a Dance Floor, Hard Candy, MDNA, Rebel Heart was her last studio album. 13 of them over a span of 30 years. Couple of soundtrack albums, 5 live albums, 6 compilation albums, and then 34 other assorted limited releases. Go to Wikipedia if you want to see all of these listed out for you. But that's a whole hell of a lot of music.
In 30 years. That's amazing.
It's a very prolific...
but she likes to work. And she was. I remember at one point, probably the late 80s, she was in her heyday, and it was maybe after Truth or Dare, whatever. But, you know, the big thing was she was in the quotes. They'd say the hardest working woman in showbiz because she was touring all the time. Yeah. And when she wasn't, she was either trying to have a movie career or she was recording or whatever. Yep. She was working all the time.
And that's one of the things that, came out in Truth or Dare. Couple of scenes that, one of the famous Warren Beatty scene where, they ask her if she'd like to say anything off camera and she says no. And he says, why would you want to live off camera? And then there was another kind of when she was just kind of lounging in her hotel room and there was a whole bunch of voiceovers that were obviously people being interviewed about her. And it was a female voice, I assume it was one of her backup singers, was saying, she doesn't really enjoy her success. She's so busy working to keep herself on top and do the next big thing. She's not someone who sits around and goes, wow, I've got so much money. Let's take a vacation. Let's go to the French Riviera. Let's let's pour me some champagne, peel me a grape. I mean, I'm going to luxuriate in the lap of luxury already. She doesn't do that. She just works.
But I think that is part of what an icon / a diva, they are hardworking and they keep going on and on and on, and they don't sit on their laurels. Yeah,
and I imagine she had a couple of hard years in New York when she first got there before she was she was a lead singer for some punk band or something.
There's a fear that you don't want to go back there. Yeah. It's that Scarlett O'Hara I will never be poor again kind of thing.
So other songs that don't fit into her album. A lot of songs from soundtracks. So remember Vision Quest?
I do, and I remember that song.
Yeah, Crazy for You came out of Vision Quest. Another one too. The name escapes me. Into the Groove from Desperately Seeking Susan, which she also starred in. Who's That Girl? Silly kind of, it felt British in a way, but it was all very American. Silly British kind of farce, romantic comedy kind of a thing. Her husband at the time, Sean Penn, made a movie called At Close Range. And she sang a song called Live to Tell from that, which I think was also on one of her albums.
It probably was. That was a departure in videos for her. It was it was her sitting on a chair with a black background singing.
And I think scenes from the movie just interspersed.
Yeah, every once in a while. But it was not her trademark sexy stuff.
Yeah, and I think she was saying, nice. Listen to me, I can sing. I can also sing.
I can also write.
Yeah, and I can also write a really, really powerful song. Inspired by Dick Tracy, Vogue actually appeared for the first time on the I'm Breathless album after she appeared in Dick Tracy. And then she wrote a bunch of songs that were kind of inspired by that whole 40s vibe, as well as some songs written by Stephen Sondheim for that movie. So there are 3 Sondheim songs that were written for Madonna. Kind of a big deal.
That's pretty cool.
You remember Beautiful Stranger from the Austin Powers movie, the first one? And that video is so funny, and the two of them are like tooling around in their little, and she's got some comic timing, Madonna. She's got a sense of comedy about her. She can be very
funny. I liked the song more than I liked where it was.
Are you just not an Austin Powers person?
I liked it okay. I appreciated the first one. I didn't like the others. I appreciated parts of the first one, but it I haven't seen it lately. I wonder how dated it would be.
Probably, but I do.
But I like that song a lot.
It was a great song. And then finally, she didn't originate this, of course, but Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. The dance mix actually became something that was played in a lot of clubs, but she actually sang it for real, as well as the entire score for Evita when she did that movie. Big tours, because she is like the world's highest grossing solo touring artist ever. The Blonde Ambition Tour in 1990, that also formed the basis of Truth or Dare. The Drowned World Tour, that's the tour I saw.
Okay.
That was supporting Ray of Light. And it was one of those things that was a tour in 4 acts. And so I remember the first act, she was like this British punk, like she had a Union Jack, miniskirt, and she was actually playing the guitar. She learned how to play the electric guitar for this tour and did this total like rock and roll version of Borderline, like Borderline heavy metal version of that. There was a whole thing that was all like disco cowboy because the music album was just about to come out. So she did that. There was a whole Latin American act because that was the Evita thing. And so she sang Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. She also sang, La Isla Bonita, like some of the other things that kind of have a Latin influence. And then the other act was the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Geisha act. But there were like these 4 distinct segments where the sets were different, the costumes were different, the dancing was all of this. I mean, these are more like Broadway shows than they are concert tours.
She changed the way concerts were done.
Yeah. So that was great. Others that have come since then that I have not seen, the Sticky and Sweet tour was in support of the Hard Candy album. She also had a tour called Rebel Heart, which obviously was in support of the Rebel Heart album. But again, the money she has made doing these highly theatrical tours, and if you've never seen any of them, pick up Truth or Dare. You'll see some interesting pieces. That Like a Virgin number, which is the one that got all the controversy. When she did that, she did it on a bed with these two guys beside her who would occasionally like fondle her, and they had weird variations of her standard kind of cone bra thing going on. And then at the end, it became this big thing where she basically masturbated on stage, but with this kind of Hindu-esque kind of arrangement of the song that was actually pretty cool. And watching it again, I mean, I've just made it sound pretty salacious, but it's, it works. It's Madonna. It's one of those things that it didn't shock me to my core the way that it probably did when I saw Truth or Dare in the theater when it first came out, because I did see it in the theater when it first came out.
Everything she did the first time it would hit the air was shocking and controversial.
Yeah.
And I remember that. It made headlines every single time. And honestly, at the time I remember going, if she doesn't make headlines, she's not going to make any money. And honestly, that's kind of what happened, is that the world caught up with her and sometimes in a way surpassed the sexuality she was putting out there and the shockingness and the ideas that she was putting out there. And so she wasn't getting the headlines anymore.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think that really kind of grabbed us about Madonna in the first part of her career is every single album, it seems that she would disappear just long enough and then come back as a completely different persona, right? So Like a Virgin was the tutus and the kind of leggings and the boy toy, and the kind of crazy hair with the funky headband, almost like,
thrift store. It was thrift
store
wear.
dressed in rags kind of a thing. Then she disappeared for a second. True Blue came out and suddenly she was a bubblegum 50s, almost, Doris Day looking, but then of course with all this, sexual stuff happening at the same time. Then she'd go away for just a little bit, come back in her black slip with all of a sudden brown hair, and here she is in Like a Prayer, making out with Black Jesus on the altar. Then she disappears for another second and then comes back as something completely different, and she did that a lot.
She used MTV, I think, possibly the most brilliantly.
Yeah.
And used the new concept of videos to her advantage like nobody else had ever done, obviously because it was new, but also she was able to, everybody was learning how to use it, but she was learning fast. She was figuring it out faster and was able to stay ahead of the curve every single time. I remember when True Blue came out, what she did on MTV is she had a contest, and fans were encouraged to make there was a contest of making your own video for True Blue. And so then they had the 5 finalists, and I remember watching them. And there was a winner. She picked a winner, and that was the one that was played on MTV for a long time. And then they moved to hers, which I didn't remember what hers was. I remember the fan-made one. But, I mean, that was a brilliant move. That was a brilliant move.
Yeah.
But she was the first one who did that. She was very, very, very savvy.
So we don't obviously have time to talk about every single song that Madonna ever recorded, or we'd be here, we don't have time. This would be a podcast that would be a week long. So we've each picked 3 things that we kind of want to talk about in terms of her music career. Who's going first?
I can go.
You can go.
I have 3 songs. I don't normally do the album things just because I'm not that smart. But there are songs that I like. The one that I really, really liked, the first one that I really liked was Material Girl.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a fan of Marilyn Monroe. I had seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes a lot, and I loved this homage to that. And I thought she did a great job. Also, this was in the early 80s. I was young, looking ahead. I was like, yeah, that's going to be me. I'm going to be a material girl. It was, I just enjoyed everything about it. So I liked the video, I liked the words, and obviously it's easy to dance to. I gave it an 86. Dick Clark.
What was interesting about that video, though, is I remember that, it's actually at the end of the video, she goes off with the poor guy who just has a flower for her.
Yes.
Of course, she's all doing the Marilyn kind of dancing. The dress is very reminiscent. People are throwing her furs and diamonds, and she's singing this song about how, the best things
You've
in life are
seen
free, but
Marilyn
you can give it to the
Monroe.
birds and bees. Yeah,
Marilyn
I mean,
Monroe's
sure.
okay.
And so it was very, very similar. Clearly an homage to the Gentlemen Prefer Blondes moment. But at the end of the video, she goes off with the poor carpenter who sends her a flower that he picked on his way to her dressing room.
Yep.
And so clearly this was a parody. I mean, she wasn't, at least with the video, the song never told you I'm making fun of this, but it was so over the top that I don't think she was really sending a message of materialism as much as she was saying.
No, I mean, okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You may be taking it too seriously. No, it's not that. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a fun song.
But the point is the world took it seriously because she started getting all of these, like, what are you teaching our children? And she's like, have you seen the video? Like, watch the video.
But also, past that, this was the 80s. It was about material. Everything in the world, in society, was about being materialistic. Yeah. And so she was just writing a song that was included in the decade. To me, I mean, it was just where everything was. Yeah. And so the fact that she wrote a song about it, that's completely appropriate. That is historically accurate. Yeah. But at the
followed
time,
by
I really
Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, right? It's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The other one, and this was just fun, Vogue.
Great song.
I love the song. The video, of course, so much fun. Yeah. Again, it harkens back to some of the 20s, Valentino, and so that look of the 1920s and that kind of thing. But,
and the stars of the 40s and 50s, which we love, that whole like wrap.
Yeah,
in the
middle their photo ops that you see, their studio photos that you can still, their publicity photos were very much lit like that. So I enjoyed all of that about Vogue, but.
Now, have you ever seen Paris is Burning?
I have not.
Okay.
I've heard of it.
So you know what voguing is,
yes,
really?
I do.
So it's something that originated in the drag balls of Harlem.
That makes sense.
So it's, so whether or not America knew this at the time, she was telling like hardcore LGBT people who were very familiar with gay culture, I got you.
And she brought it to the forefront so that every straight guy out there is talking about voguing. Yeah. Which is, again, all of this stuff sets the stage for the fact that we have RuPaul's Drag Race on VH1.
Absolutely.
And then the other one that I really, really liked used to be My Playground from League of Her Own.
Forgot about that one. That's another soundtrack thing.
And it was, it's a very sentimental song, and I can get teared up just thinking about it. And part of it is because it was played at the end of the movie. When you have all of these, which I guess we'll talk about the movie a little later on, but you have all of these real female baseball players, and you have this song of hers playing in the background, and it's just it's a lovely sentimental journey. Yeah.
And so we did an entire episode about A League of Their Own last year. And one of the things we kind of mentioned about that was, Madonna was probably still in the stage of her acting career where it was one of those, you want to be in this movie? How about you record us a song and we'll make that part of the deal. Maybe she was happy to do it. Maybe this was something, I think she did write that song.
I think she did too, yeah.
So I think, she certainly poured a little bit of her heart and soul into it. It's a lovely song.
I really do like that one. And that was, as I said, that's a Madonna song that can make me cry. Vogue doesn't make me cry. Material Girl doesn't make me cry. I Like a Virgin doesn't make me cry. But that one, it's very sentimental, but it shows, like that other one we were talking about, that she
lived to tell
that she can go to those places poetically. Sure. And I appreciated that. Yep. So those are my three.
Okay. So the three that I picked out that I wanted to pay special attention to, and the first one I think is it harkens to your first one, is because it's so much fun. I think Into the Groove is probably like the perfect pop song. The melody is so catchy. It's such an earworm for me. If I hear it, I'm humming it for the rest of the day.
She knew how to do that. She was just clever. She's a clever songwriter. Yeah. And was able for a long time to really, this is a cliched statement, she would have the pulse of whatever was going on the dance floor.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
and that's a perfect example.
And a line from Vogue, just get up on the dance floor, right? This was a song all about get up and dance. Yes. The only thing it's saying. So, yes, I do have a propensity to take things a little seriously. I read things into things. there's not much you can read into this one other than what a perfect pop song. Mm-hmm. And don't you just want to dance every time you hear that? The second one I picked is an album because it's hard for me to talk about any of these songs kind of separate from each other. And I think it's the highlight of her career. And a lot of uptight, pretentious critics actually agree with me on this one, is the Ray of Light album. And I remember when it came out, the very first song that came out of that was Frozen. And the video was odd and weird. She was kind of in her Kabbalah phase, which was, I don't follow Kabbalah. I don't know much about it. I understand she was on a spiritual journey and great. But the imagery was interesting and it was fun. But what she said about that album is that her mission was to try to prove to the world that electronic music could also be emotional. And so it wasn't just a bunch of, this kind of steady disco beat things that sounds kind of almost on purpose artificial. They were offbeat, they were rhythmic, there were kind of these things that sounded like all of a sudden wind whistling through something, and there wasn't, necessarily melody going on. It was more like just a soundscape.
For me, this was an album that had like a mature introspection to it, as opposed to, we're just going to make this either to shock. Yeah. Or to just be danceable, Holiday, the early ones, that kind of stuff. I think for me, there was a maturity there, and I have lived life, so I can write about some other stuff. Yeah. And I think this was just her showing the world she could do it. Yeah,
and so Frozen was a very introspective song. She had a song on there called Little Star that was about her newborn daughter, Lourdes. That tells you how old long ago this was. She had, a number of songs that were about kind of interesting kind of topics. And then, of course, the title song was Ray of Light, which is a total dance floor, really fun to dance to. I mean, she could still do that, and obviously she still would. The last one for me is that I did kind of go through this moment of, I think Madonna might have peaked. Right, I think Madonna might have just, gone as far as she. And then there was a song that came out from the MDNA album that I had to buy on. I was no longer buying CDs. I was already kind of in the iTunes things where I would just download it on my phone and listen to it in my car. But I listened to Girl Gone Wild so many times. I'm like, she has still got it. She's still got it. There's still like this artistry in there that kind of needs to get out. And again, Girl Gone Wild is not much to read into. It's kind of a very kind of typical message for her is that, I'm not the good girl, right? I'm a girl gone wild. But the melody is so catchy. It's so, I cannot not tap my toes when I listen to that song. And it was just kind of, it's something from her later career that I was like, wow, boy, she's good. Yeah. She's just really, really good. So that's Madonna's life in music. We'll probably, she is a musician first and foremost, and so we'll probably reference her musical career as we go forward, but we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Madonna at the movies.
Talking about MDNA, Madonna. And we've talked about the music, which it makes sense that the majority of what we talk about on this podcast is her music, because that is how she started, that is who she is. I think that's who she sees herself. Now, one thing she always did try for a while there, she was really trying, was to be an actress as well, and to be known for both of those things. Yeah. It didn't quite work out that way.
She's not, her film career probably was not as successful as she would have hoped that it would be. And yet I think that I'm a super fan. So I said this at the beginning. There are some things that she has done in the movies that I thought she was fantastic in.
Okay. So what I want to say about this is that I think there were some bad choices. Okay. I think that different choices could have had a different outcome with regard to her, in that she is not the worst actress out there. She's not. Nope. She's not even one of the worst mediocre kind of things, because there are times that she has shined. I thought she shined in A League of Their Own. I thought she shined in Evita. I know that's controversial. There are people who are like, how dare you? But
Well, Patti LuPone, chief among them.
F Patti LuPone.
Yeah, fuck you, Patti LuPone.
I want to say that because fuck you. And now we've got our explicit rating.
Yeah, and we're gonna get the hate mail. We're gonna get the hate mail.
Yeah, and what?
I don't care, Patti. That was so bitter. Like when she was on there.
What is the point, Patti?
Exactly. Were they going to cast
LuPone?
LuPone.
You just said LaBelle.
Oh, did I say Patti LaBelle?
But put LuPone.
Patti LaBelle just kind of falls off the tongue a little easier.
I know.
Patti LuPone, the original Evita on Broadway.
Patti LaBelle.
I love Patti LaBelle.
No, LuPone, I thought there's no reason for you. You're still working on Broadway. You're still fine. You're successful. You've got, everybody has given you your credos and your awards. Why do you have to go? Why? Why, bitch?
And in the mid-90s.
Because she was never going to be Evita in the 90s.
In the movies? In the 90s?
No.
She
Dude,
was
you
not
were way too old.
even in consideration for that.
No. So, to me, that was just headline grabbing.
Yeah.
So that's my little taking up
Rosie
for Madonna.
Rosie O'Donnell was much kinder to Patti LuPone because, of course, she's friends with both of them. And so she was on Andy Cohen saying, well, I forgive her. I understand. I don't forgive you, Patti LuPone. I'm still mad about that.
Yeah.
Like, just, grow up. Anyway.
No Christmas cards for you, Eric.
I guess not. So as an actress, there were some hits, right? So let's kind of, there were some bombs. But there were some hits that she made. Desperately Seeking Susan, I would put in the pro category. Her first big one. So there were some.
Was she in some little pieces?
Well,
early?
she was. Her very first film was a movie called A Certain Sacrifice that wasn't even released until after she was Madonna.
Sure.
So I understand it's bad.
Okay, sounds
like
awful.
it's bad.
It's an awful title.
Yeah, it's terrible. Desperately Seeking Susan was the first film that she landed after kind of being a big pop star.
It kind of hit at the same time. She was early on, and this was with Rosanna Arquette. Yep. And I will tell you right now, I felt like she went toe-to-toe with her. And that may be part because I wasn't really thrilled with Rosanna Arquette.
Well, it was Rosanna Arquette's movie. I mean, it was a movie about,
I didn't think she was great. That was my problem with it.
It's not Deathless Art, Desperately Seeking Susan, but it's about this bored housewife from New Jersey who follows the adventures of this, rascal named Susan in the personal ads because she and her boyfriend connect in the personal.
And this is real, like, paper.
Yeah.
This is hardcore. This is not on anything electronic.
This is the 80s, people. And so...
They were circling shit with lipstick. That's how it was going down.
And so she was kind of enamored of this larger-than-life figure with a, Susan was the most exciting name in the world, but Susan was this kind of mysterious, enigmatic, adventurous New York larger-than-life, and Roberta, who was Rosanna Arquette, boring housewife who just kind of, and so for what she had to do, she was great. And she does figure into the story eventually because, of course, Roberta hits her head, wakes up, thinks she's Susan, shenanigans ensue.
Yeah. But I thought she did really well on that one. And as I said, also A League of Their Own, I thought she did really well.
Yeah.
It was an ensemble piece, and I thought and of course there's a chemistry between she and Rosie.
Yep. Who became really good friends on the set. Really
good friends, but it was a buddy kind of thing there in the movie itself, and that was fun to watch. So I found her completely believable and fun to watch in that.
And she was the quote-unquote sex pot of the team, who also had this lovely scene where she's teaching the illiterate girl how to read, of course, using kind of a racy book.
Yes.
And the whole, she's
As
reading and but it was exciting. So, of course, she had some motivation to want to read this thing. Dick Tracy is, I think, probably,
she was great.
She was great. The movie itself is a big live-action cartoon. It's a cartoon in live-action form. They did everything they could to try to make it look like a Sunday comic from the newspaper.
Yeah, it was Warren Beatty, doing his directorial thing, and it's very vibrant colors, kind of thing.
And very stylized.
Very stylized.
And so the whole movie, she comes out, the first big scene she has with Warren Beatty, her mob, figure boyfriend, she hated him. Paul Sorvino played this guy named Lips Manless, who was disgusting. And she was kind of forced to be his girlfriend. He died. She's not upset about this. But Warren Beatty comes to her dressing room, and she's wearing a negligee. And his first line is, "Aren't you mourning for lips?" And she says, "I'm wearing black underwear." Kind of like that. This, she very kind of Marilyn-esque, breathy kind of voice. Every single line.
Her name was Breathless.
Breathless Mahoney.
Yeah.
every single line she has in that scene is a punchline, and it's some kind of innuendo, and it's perfect. I mean, it's just, she's got the blonde hair, she's got the look, she's got the attitude, she's got some great lines. She delivers them pitch perfectly, great comic timing, and then there's some pieces towards the end where she's a woman who actually falls in love with Dick Tracy, and Dick Tracy can't return her love because he has pledged his heart to Tess Trueheart, and it's Dick Tracy. But a very cute movie. And then the other thing that we have to file under one of her hits we were just talking about is Evita.
Yep. I think she did well.
She was fine. She was,
she did well.
She really, more than fine. I think she actually did a brilliant job.
Brilliant. That's
I do. She went to, so the interesting thing is she went to Patti LuPone's vocal coach. So that's actually, I heard stories that they once they kind of met each other coolly in the hallway. She did go to vocal training to do this
Which
score.
is good. That's what she needed to do. Had she been so cocky and egotistic that she's like, I don't need that, that's a problem. But the fact that she understood this was outside of her normal.
Yeah. A different kind of singing. And a role that a lot of, now the whole thing about,
she worked hard for it, and I appreciate that as well. I think she succeeded at it. I think she did really, really well.
And Evita is a Broadway play that actually was first a concept album. So Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice just wrote songs about the life of Eva Peron, put them in an album, which is why there's really only 2.5 roles in the whole show.
Right.
And then a chorus, so it's not really your typical Broadway show. And the whole point of Evita was, who was this woman? Like, who is she? Is she the hero of a nation, or is she like this, Machiavellian, money-grubbing, gold digger kind of, there's two very different sides to this.
And I think Madonna hit both. I think she did a really nice job.
Because you have to kind of walk that line. You can't make a choice that's either one or the other. You kind of disturb what the whole show is about. Now, there were some bombs. When she was married to Sean Penn, she made a movie with him called Shanghai Surprise.
Shit.
Oh, it was bad. It was, sorry, Madge, I love you. Not a great movie.
It's awful.
Well, and
not a great movie. No, it's awful.
It's terrible. And you know what? Sean Penn isn't good in this movie. So Sean Penn's no one's good in this movie. And
fun fact, they have no chemistry.
Yeah. Well, you don't cast, I guess, the name Madonna, the Catholic, thing going on. She was cast as a missionary and a squeamish, moralistic missionary. It's not her. It's not anything that bad choice. And I think she did it because she wanted to make a movie with her husband.
Yeah. And I think she wanted to stretch and do something different. Again, she still at this time was trying to pick things that would be different from her regular persona.
Exactly.
And she made some poor choices.
Yeah.
And another one was...
Now, this choice actually, though, this actually fit in perfectly well to her persona and probably was a good choice on paper. The first day of the set, she probably thought, this is going to be it for me. It was called Body of Evidence. And it was right after Basic Instinct. So Sharon Stone had just made a splash by playing this hyper-sexualized serial killer. Mm-hmm. And here she is playing this woman who's on trial for killing her husband. The supporting cast is amazing. Willem Dafoe, Anne Archer, Joe Mantegna, Julianne Moore. All of these really great actors surrounding her. And it was just this oversexed, silly potboiler mystery that had no suspense. It was just, I think it was badly directed. Is she good in it? No. I can't say that any of the actors I just named gave their best performance in this movie.
Who directed that?
Uli somebody.
Okay, because I think some, and this is, and we know this, some actors need a good director.
Yeah.
And she is one of those. But it also has to be the right part, and it also has to be, a decent movie.
Yeah. So the next bomb on the list, I hate to do this, Madonna, to you, because I love you so much, but The Next Best Thing. Did you see it?
No, remind me.
Okay, The Next Best Thing was the movie she made with Rupert Everett, where they had a kid together. He was the gay best friend. Yes, I did see that. I saw half of it.
I blocked it out of my mind.
I saw half of it.
It was awful.
Yeah, it was not a good movie. She played a yoga instructor in L.A., kind of a girl next door kind of a part.
And this was after my best friend's wedding, I believe, because Rupert Everett was he was the bomb. He was getting jobs left and right, and the importance of being earnest. There were a lot of things that happened for him, so he was everywhere, and they were best buddies off screen, and did this, and it's awful.
I mean, the first thing is, they were both drunk, so they had sex. Okay. You'd have to get me pretty drunk to just randomly have sex with a girlfriend of mine.
There's another one that reminded me of this, which was the Jennifer Aniston and
The Object of My Affection.
Yeah,
which is much better.
But I didn't like it either.
I liked
the same setup thing, and I just didn't care for it. But it was around the same time. It was the same kind of thing, and I was like, meh.
Yeah. Now, the one bomb that I have to list as a bomb, because I think it not only it ended her movie career, and I probably destroyed her marriage to Guy Ritchie, was Swept Away. But I'm going to defend this movie. It's not that bad. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay. It's not that bad.
It got so panned.
It got ravaged. It got ravaged by everyone. Yes. And so basically in Swept Away, she plays this rich bitch who lives in a yacht. She doesn't live on a yacht, but the beginning of the movie, she's on vacation with her husband and her rich friends. And there's this guy who's hot as hell, but she treats like shit because he's a servant.
Is this Overboard? No.
But very much like it in a way.
So far, it's the plot of Overboard.
Yeah. So in there, all of a sudden there's a storm and the yacht sinks and everyone goes to their lifeboats. And she's in a lifeboat with this guy. Now, she doesn't get amnesia. Did she get amnesia in Overboard?
Yes.
Okay, that's one of the amnesia movies. Yes. She doesn't in this. Their lifeboat gets separated from the other lifeboats and they ended up on a deserted island. So it's Overboard meets the Blue Lagoon. In that these two people are now stranded on a desert island.
Was he the butler?
He was a fisherman who caught their fish on the yacht and cooked their food.
Because there was an old British movie. Is this a remake?
It is. It's a remake of an Italian movie. So she's on this desert island with this guy, and all of a sudden, obviously, the power has completely reversed, right? She is at his whim because he knows how to survive on a desert island. Correct. He knows how to fish. He knows how to make food. He can create a hut for them to sleep in. And, of course, they fall in love and shenanigans ensue. And then at the end of the movie, they're rescued, and it's this kind of bittersweet ending because when the real world comes back, she's not going to give up everything she had to be a fisherman's wife.
Kenneth Bates, I believe.
Okay.
Old school, and it's very similar.
It might have been remade from the same movie.
Interesting.
But anyway,
called Swept Away. But anyway.
So anyway, she, you see her kind of drive away in her limousine, and she's sad because the love of her life is sitting on the tarmac, but she's not going to go with them. And that's the end of the movie. It makes its point for whatever it is. It was well directed. She was fine in it. And it is a role that I think is a good choice for her in that it meets kind of her persona. But it got destroyed by critics everywhere. And I'm not going to stand up and tell you that The Next Best Thing was a good movie. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say Shanghai Surprise was a good film. I'm not going to do that. Swept Away was actually a decent movie. It
also sounds like it might be a timing issue that storyline and the whole class system, which is why she left and didn't go back to him. People, that's like, why are you still stuck in that? That's not how we are now. So it might have been a timing thing.
As I was looking for movies to watch to prep for this, Swept Away is available on one of the streaming services, either Prime or Netflix. Okay. So you can watch it for free. Yeah. And it's not bad. The hidden gem that hardly anyone has seen, but I love this movie. Have you ever seen Bloodhounds of Broadway?
No.
Okay, Bloodhounds of Broadway, very quickly, if you can find it. Because it played on PBS and I recorded it on VHS back in the day.
You're so old.
I know. And I watched it over and over and over again. Eventually, I got it on DVD. I still have it on DVD, so I think you can find it there if you have a DVD player. It is the stories of Damon Runyon that were not used to make Guys and Dolls. They decided to make 3 kind of interlocking stories that all take place on New Year's Eve, 1928 into 1929.
Okay.
So obviously people are living the high life. They think it's going to last forever. We know it's not because when we see the numbers change to 1929, anyone with a sense of history goes, Yeah. But it's about, dolls and flappers and people who are living the life. Randy Quaid plays this guy named Feet Samuels. And they call him Feet because he has size 15 feet. When you meet him, his feet are so big he can't keep them in under the dinette table that he's standing at. So they're in the aisle, and a waiter trips over his shoes and says, "Would you get those violin cases out of the aisle?" In that kind of, New York. And Madonna plays Hortense Hathaway, who is the most beautiful flapper in New York, and everyone wants her. And Randy Quaid is in love with her. Sells his body to a mad scientist for scientific research. He has to give himself over to science in 24 hours, but now he has a bunch of money. He's going to spend it all on Hortense and try to get, spend the last night on Earth happy, and then is completely amazed when she falls in love with him because he's a sweet guy and she's not used to sweet guys. She's used to assholes who, everyone else is in this movie. Julie Haggerty is in this movie, and it was right after Airplane, so she was kind of hot. Jennifer Grey is in this movie, pre-nose job. Rutger Hauer is in this movie, plays a guy called The Brain.
I love Rutger Hauer. Back in the day, he was hot.
And he's fantastic in this movie. He is he gets shot early on. He's kind of a mob boss. And throughout the movie, he's dying, and he's trying to figure out where he's going to, who's going to put him up. All of his ex-girlfriends refuse to give him a place to stay so somebody can patch him up. And the way his story ends up is actually quite touching in the midst of all this other kind of stuff. Anyway, it's a great movie. Madonna doesn't make it. It's a very ensemble piece, but she holds her own among this ensemble, and she's appropriately silly and 20s and fun. Anyway, my sense of Madonna's career is that her biggest problem on screen is that she's Madonna. I mean, she recorded a song called Bitch, I'm Madonna. I mean, it's just like her persona is so larger than life. If she's not playing a big, larger than life or mysterious, enigmatic, or iconic character, it's hard to forget that she's Madonna. She can't play a girl next door. She can't take a role that was meant for Julia Roberts. It's just not going to work. That's, I think, what tried to happen with The Next Best Thing. She played the yoga instructor who lives in this little funky LA neighborhood, but she's nobody special. No, she's Madonna. Like, it's hard to kind of let that go, which is why I think Swept Away worked, even though it was such a big bomb, and why all of her other hits were huge hits. I mean, Breathless Mahoney was the biggest star in the New York of that Dick Tracy movie. Susan from Desperately Seeking Susan was this larger-than-life, almost iconic character, at least in the mind of Rosanna Arquette's character, and that's all we needed. Evita, Eva Perón was the rock star of her day as First Lady of Argentina in that community, and worshipped and adored. And when you see the flags unfurl and the state funeral, it's like, a bunch of gay people will do that when Madonna dies. So, yeah, I can totally see that happening. So I think that those are the things that kind of constrain her on film, but when she's playing something that is in that wheelhouse. And A League of Their Own is probably the one exception to that, although she was the funny, quirky sexpot. And so
it was an ensemble piece, but that was a character that was close to what the culture's and society's version of her was.
Yeah. So if she had been a baseball player in the 40s, that's who Madonna would have been.
She wouldn't have been the good girl who couldn't read. She would have been that one who was out there, wearing the short skirt.
Yeah, May. Yep. And she didn't steal scenes weirdly, even though she was.
But again, I think here's my thing on it. I think a lot of this comes down to director. I think she made some poor choices in movies that she chose to do. The Sean Penguin, for example, that kind of thing. But at the same time, she needed to have a good director, and so if she didn't have a good director, then there she was again with this lack. But I agree that we have an expectation. We have an expectation for Cher. We have an expectation for Bette Midler. We have an expectation for certain icons. And we don't see that. It's hard. Michael J. Fox dealt with that. Mm-hmm. That we aren't going to pay. He's not going to have a hit movie if it doesn't fit into who we believe Michael J. Fox is. Yeah. And that's what Madonna has as well. But I also think she made some poor choices, but she also not as strong an actor as Michael J. Fox. And so she needed to have a really good director. Yeah. Bottom line for Madonna, she is an icon because she worked her ass off to get there.
Yeah. And was at the center of several controversies, many of them probably planned.
I totally think they were. I think that she did that on purpose.
Yeah, and she says in Truth or Dare, I'm interested in pushing people's buttons. So we already mentioned when Pepsi dropped her because her campaign for Pepsi was burning crucifixes and making out with Black Jesus. You think Pepsi's going to be okay with that? She knew that she was,
second-rate cola. No, of course it's not going to do that.
So it dumped her like a hot rock, and she got so much free press out of that.
Oh my God, yes.
That Like a Prayer became a big hit, and she didn't have to make Pepsi commercials.
But that's the thing is, every time she put out a new video or a new song, and she had this controversy, it sold like a mama.
Except, MTV did actually ban Justify My Love. Remember when Justify My Love came out?
They did ban it for a while.
Banned. And that was not a big hit.
Not
so
forever.
I think she expected to. On that one, I think maybe she overshot a little bit. Again, you watch the Justify My Love video now, it's nothing. Which is indicative of just how much she has shifted the culture.
She and Prince, and there were several of them who did that.
Yeah. Remember the sex book that came out in 92?
Oh, yeah. It was a coffee table book.
Yeah. A coffee table book featuring a lot of naked Madonna or a lot of Madonna in very highly sexualized poses. My favorite one was when she was absolutely naked in high heels with a 50s era handbag hitchhiking on the side of the freeway. And all I did when I looked at that, I was like, okay, first of all, her body is perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I am as gay as the day is long, but I stared at it because it's like this body is perfect. But also, like, how did they shoot that? I guess she was just in a robe on the side of the road, and at some moment she just kind of dropped the robe, hitchhiked for enough time to somebody get a bunch of shots before she got arrested for indecent exposure because she is on a highway in Los Angeles. Like, that was just like, wow, Madonna, okay, you go, you get it.
And some of that is art. Some of it's not art. Some of it's just there to be controversial. But some of it is art. But again, it was of its time. And
it was pushing boundaries. It's exactly what she wanted to do. And it was timed in conjunction with the Erotica album.
Sure.
So she was...
That's what I'm saying, is that this controversy wasn't... All of the controversies, in my opinion, were not accidental.
Yeah. So she almost got shut down in Canada during the Blonde Ambition tour. She did cancel some shows in Italy. The Vatican was successful in shutting down her show. And then finally, the last one is what, it didn't really touch her so much, but everyone was shocked when Britney Spears French kissed Madonna at the MTV Music Awards. Remember that?
I would totally remember that.
And then she turned around and French kissed Christina Aguilera, and nobody cared about Christina because it was like Christina was already kind of saying, this has been my persona from the beginning, so whatever, no one was shocked.
Well,
Britney was a Mickey Mouse Club member, and she just slipped... Oh, she was?
Dude, they were on the Mickey Mouse Club together with
Justin Timberlake. That's right. Except that Christina's whole solo career was, I am dumping this like a hot rock. And Britney was a little bit more, I'm a cute little schoolgirl in my,
But now by the time they did their kiss, Britney had already been on VH1 Awards with the damn snake, with the red leather pantsuit.
But for whatever reason, people freaked out about Britney.
I don't think it was because it was Britney. I think it was because it was two women do French kissing on an award show where my 5-year-old could see. Which, while your 5-year-old is watching the VH1 Awards, I have nothing to say to you about parenting. But
MTV, but yes.
Or whomever, I mean, they're owned by the same people. It was just silly.
I think it just happened with Britney first, and so, but that's the still photograph that made everyone crazy, and it was so much fun, and she was loving it. Please, Madonna was eating.
Well, because she was again. This was when she was still trying to stay relevant, okay? Because Britney and Christina had taken over all of those headlines, the music headlines at that point. So this was Madonna trying to stay relevant and what do you do? Oh, you French kiss another girl on the stage. I mean, Madonna started that whole weird award craze when she did Like a Virgin, and it was shocking back in the day. It's hard. You have to keep coming up with something new every year.
But I think Britney and Christina did it because they also understood how much of their careers they owed to Madonna.
Yeah, and also it's Madonna. Yeah. I mean, you do that.
So... and then obviously, and beside of all the fashion, the whole fashion thing that was, remember the Madonna wannabes?
Everything she did when she was doing these controversial videos and whatever, it was, again, I think it was very well thought of and planned. Once she came out with Holiday and Like a Virgin and she realized that I'm a fashion icon, people are now going to follow that, she then chose things. So she was very careful about how she dressed and what she put out there fashion-wise, whether it was on the screen or whether it was just when she was arriving to an award show.
Yep. But she was smart enough to know that the thrift store look was not going to keep her relevant forever. So she reinvented herself.
She reinvented herself every single album. Yeah. That's what she did. Yeah. And she was, again, I'm going to say my final diagnosis, one of the most savvy show business women, business people ever.
Yep.
She figured it out, and she figured it out early enough for it to work for her.
And I'm just going to go a little step further. Yes, and she also, I think, had something to say to the world about women and sexuality and that whole kind of, she would never use the word slut shaming, but basically she was shaming the slut shamers who were saying, how dare you do this? And she was like, oh, I'm going to do this, I feel no compunction about it.
It was calling the bluff. Well, maybe not a bluff, but it was pushing back, saying, no, I'm not going to go back into the shadows.
Yeah.
And I think that was bound to happen because that's evolution, that is progress.
Yep.
And it happens that Madonna figured out how to do it, and she was the one who did it.
And feminists of the 80s hated her. They thought she was sending women back by being such a big sex object. And she was actually kind of coming out and saying, no, I'm trying to push the narrative forward so we can be all of these things. And then this whole other wave of feminism happened in the 90s. And academic journals were writing about Madonna's contribution to feminism. So I'm not the only one who read really deep into all this stuff and said, yeah, she did do that. Now women have the ability to express whatever they are feeling. And that includes sexuality much, much more today than they did in the 80s. We forget how prudish we were in the 80s when she came out.
Well, again, the political time, it was Reagan. So there was a very conservative thing going on in that respect.
The AIDS crisis.
And AIDS was the crisis part was new. And so every year we were learning a little bit more about it. But there were some just weird stuff at one point. The ideas about it were so strange. And Princess Diana was in there. She was starting, again, let's bring all this out in the open. Let's not be scared of it. And then at the same time, you had that whole materialistic thing, that whole 80s boom of making money is all that this is about. Yeah. And so I think that she was definitely a part of pop culture. But I do think, historically, that will her name will be there.
So savvy businesswoman, absolutely. All I'm saying is I think she was equal parts commerce and art. I will say that she brought just as much on the other side in terms of having things to say and provoking people and making people uncomfortable and taking them out of their comfort zone. And that was probably all mingled together. It's one of the reasons why she made a whole bunch of money. But she made it work in such a way.
Timing had to be good in order for her to make money off of doing that.
Sure.
So, again, I do think, she had something to say. But I really think she learned how to manipulate the system and get out there. And I appreciate that. To me, that's not a put down. To me, that's not less than.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's where I really, really admire her for that. And I did at the time. I remember going when the Black Jesus thing came up, and I just remember chuckling, going, "Bitch, still got it."
Yeah.
I mean, damn. This one's going to be a million seller too.
Yeah.
And so, but again, she was able to do that.
Whereas I was the one going, wow, all these racists are freaking the hell out. That's interesting. And look at how she's changing the conversation. So I to me, it's just all I'm saying is, yes, everything you're saying, and it's not one or the other. Yeah. I think both of them can absolutely exist at the same time. Yeah. Bottom line, Madonna, we love you.
Hashtag MDNA, man. We love you. We really do. And I admire the hell out of her.
You've been listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey, the podcast that dissects popular culture one bloody organ at a time. Subscribe today on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other podcast listening site or app. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Popperation Room. Check out our website at popperationroom.com for all of the podcasts, our blog, swag, and games. Until next time, when we're back in the scrubs.